So we're going to just do some introductions here of our main presenters and Maggie. So I am Mike Rogers. I am one of the co-chairs of A.R.I.S.E Western New York. Um, we hold these lunch and learns quarterly because we want to involve the community, because that's a part of what A.R.I.S.E does, is involve the community to promote accessibility and inclusion. So, um, so Maggie, you want to do a little bit of an introduction of yourself, and then we'll go to Frank.
Sure. I'm Maggie Buckley, and I'm involved with Transforming Care. We're an organization that is building community for people with and without disabilities. So I feel like we're really fortunate today to have Mike Rogers and Frank Hammerata presenting, because we know that with climate change, the storms are going to increase in frequency and intensity. And whether you have a disability or not, the thing that will help us cope with that is to be prepared and also to be in relationship with people and support one another and check on one another as often as we can.
All right, great. Thank you, Maggie. Go ahead, Frank.
I was going to say, Maggie, that was a great introduction.
Yes.
Two very important pieces that you hit on, and Mike and I will be talking about throughout our presentation. But good morning or good afternoon, everybody. I'm Frank Camerata. I'm the Executive Director of the Erie County Office for People with Disabilities. Erie County is one of only 6 counties in all of New York State that offers an office similar to ours. I am the advocate for people with disabilities, providing a direct voice to people with disabilities in local county government. We are very active in our we're very active in our county, and we're out and we're supporting people with disabilities all the time, and we definitely want to hear from you. So hopefully you'll get a lot out of this, and hand it back to Mike.
Okay, just a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to take questions, but at the end. So for people that are you know, joining us, we're going to be taking questions at the end. All right. So, Frank, this is, we're talking about emergency preparedness, and we're coming to you. Frank and I are coming to you from the Buffalo area. Now, we know how to deal with emergencies. We're Buffalo. We deal with snow. We know what we're doing. Why even do this, Frank? We deal with stuff all the time. Why even do it?
Well, Mike, you touched upon it. Snow isn't the only thing, but winter is almost upon us. We had our first flakes. We had our first snowflakes of the season last night. But emergency preparedness is something that needs to be discussed year round. We don't just have snowstorms. We have windstorms. We've had tornadoes in the past. There's the potential for chemical spills, train derailments. Any of these things could cause an emergency situation in our county. And anytime that happens, a person with a disability may be involved in that, or needs to be aware that there is a situation going on in our community, and you need to know what to do and where to go.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, just to give a little bit of a perspective, because in preparing this, people think that, oh, there's people with disabilities in the country, and that's lovely and all that good stuff. But we have some statistics, and they're pretty telling statistics. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you know what they are. So we have 57 million people in the United States that have a disability. 7 million people have an intellectual disability. 6.6 million people have low vision or blindness. 3.2 million people use a mobility device like a wheelchair, a scooter, crutches, walker, those kind of things. And then 10 million people are deaf or hard of hearing. So that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. We're not just a small group, we're the largest minority there is.
And
So just to give that perspective.
in the largest minority that anyone can join at any time of their life, right?
Yes,
Mike?
yes. I mean, we always say that you can join the club. Anytime you want to, life gives you the card to join the club, you join the club, right? So, Frank, what is the ADA definition of disability? What is a disability?
So the Americans with Disabilities Act defines a disability as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a daily life activity. Such as what folks are doing right now, listening to us, they're watching us. Somebody might be walking around, somebody might be sitting in a chair. All of these are different types of daily life activities. That is the exact definition of disability as per the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I also want to touch upon something too. You gave us those statistics. Here in Erie County, approximately 19% of our county, approximately 19% of our community is a person with a disability.
And you talk about functional areas. What does it mean to be being, hampered in a functional area?
So yeah, so you touch upon that, along with people with disabilities, you have this group, the Access and Functional Needs Group, right? And these are people who may have a disability, but they may be an older adult. They may be a person with limited English proficiency. They may have limited transportation access. They may even be a person who is pregnant. It's access and functional needs, okay? So it's not just a physical or mental impairment, that definition that I gave you before, but, it is somebody that, because of their age, because of their, what their physical size, whatever it is, okay, they may not be able to perform specific aspects of their life.
So disability is not just a wheelchair user, right?
That is correct.
Right.
That is correct.
Oftentimes we think of disability as, we envision a person using a wheelchair and that's a disabled person, but it's much more than that.
Right.
So, Frank, we're in a modern age, right? We're in a modern age. We have first responders. We have fire persons, with the trucks, with medical equipment. We have law enforcement officers. We have emergency medical technicians. They're gonna come save us, right? We don't need to. Why are we even doing this? All we have to do is pick up the cell phone and say 911, and it'll track, and they'll come save us, right?
Well, that's what we hope for, right? But what happens if it's a windstorm and the cell towers are knocked down? What happens if it's a major blizzard like we had in December and the first responders, their resources, they become limited? Keep in mind that when we had our storm in December, those first responders, a lot of their fire trucks, a lot of their ambulances, a lot of their police vehicles, they got stuck in the snow. They couldn't get around in our community. So they couldn't affect a rescue. It's vital that we need to make a plan. Then we have these conversations first, but then it's important that we make a plan, and we plan for at least, we used to say 3 to 5 days of being on your own. We're now saying at least 7 days. Plan to be independent, plan to not be rescued for at least 7 days. Know how to survive for those 7 days.
So up to at least 7 days. That's a long time. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And I know from my personal experience, I was in that situation for around 5 days. Okay. And little birdie said, "Move the mic." Thank you. All right, I appreciate that. So I was stuck for at least 5 days, around there without power and heat.
Right.
And preparedness is something that is very important. Yeah, it's very vital. It's vital. So but Frank, can't we just look out the window and see the weather? Or they have the farmer's almanac. Can't we just look at it and it'll tell us how the winter is going to be, how the weather's going to be in our area? We have all these things. We know what we're doing. We're a modern society, like I said. Shouldn't we just be able to look out and see the flakes and go, "Oh, there's a storm that we can handle," or I see the tornado, or I know, when it's coming because I feel it in my bones.
I love how you and I have talked about the Farmer's Almanac how many times, and I know how much you love that Farmer's Almanac. I think it's kind of bedtime reading for you. I haven't figured it out yet, Mike, but gotta be honest with you, I know how much you love that. In a way, I want to say it's kind of comical, because no one really can prove if the Farmer's Almanac predictions are going to be correct. The only way that we know what's happening in our weather system is we need to reach out to our local, our local weather services. Erie County has something called the Ready Erie app, which I have on my phone, and I strongly recommend it. I also strongly recommend that you listen to your local weather reports on a very regular basis. I hate to say this, I drive my wife crazy. She's always saying, "Are you watching the weather again?" I'm kind of a weather geek, but it's about being situationally aware. You said just look outside and you see snow falling. Yeah, snow is falling, but you don't know how long that snow is going to fall, and you don't know if the winds are going to get stronger, and you don't know if that temperature is going to drop below zero. We know that through weather forecasts. We know that when we're paying attention to the weather radio, when we're paying attention to the local weather forecast, when we're watching TV, when we're listening to the radio. So it's important.
So we were talking about communication.
Yeah.
And one thing I learned through my experiences is that's vital. Can you go into a little bit more detail on communication when it comes to disasters and emergencies?
So similar to the resources I just mentioned, that type of communication, right? But you and I, we shot a video recently, right, about emergency preparedness. And that's a form of communication that we're trying to get out into the community to make people more aware of emergency preparedness. The thing that we are talking about in Erie County is it's called Circle of Care, and you learned a very valuable lesson about creating that circle of care, if you will.
Sure.
Making friends, making sure your neighbors, making sure that people who are first responders, making sure that your neighbors know who you are. It's vital that happens. It's also vital that if you're a person with a disability and you have a care coordinator, make sure that relationship with that care coordinator is tight. Make sure that that care coordinator reaches out to you in times of inclement weather. It just picks up the phone and goes, "Hey, how are you doing there, Mike? How you doing, Frank? Everything okay?"
Sure, and I can say through my experience that I had, I didn't have any direct support because they were snowed in along with everybody else. So I had my neighbors that we all had to step up and support each other. And you're right about the the care coordinators needing to be a vital part of things.
Oh, yeah.
We noticed that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. And you also, your neighbors, so important, right? Your neighbors, your friends,
Hmm.
your family members, everyone's in that circle.
Yeah, yeah,
And we need to really use that as a point of strength.
sure.
Because like you said, 7 days is a long time.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
long time to be
It's
on
a,
your own
it's
to try to
a
survive,
5 days was
right?
whatever it
There
was.
you go,
I'm doing an
exactly.
estimate.
Yeah,
5 days
exactly.
was a long time. I was
Right.
like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we're in trouble here without heat and power and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
So yeah. So now you recommend, the best course of action is to stay in place, right?
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Sure. It's again, I mentioned that situational awareness. That's that, looking outside, and if you see snow falling, how much snow is falling? Is it falling real hard? Is it big wet flakes? Is it a rainstorm? Is it 75-mile-an-hour winds? You need to know what is going on. And if you look outside and realize, well, maybe I shouldn't go outside, that might be your best tack, right? Um, if it's a tornado, it's a blizzard, honestly, just stay inside. That's why we want you to be prepared. Know what the emergency is, right? Um, Snow can be disorienting, just like a dense fog. Stay inside. If you have to go out, make sure that you have a pre-plan. You know, make sure that you have a to-go bag, an emergency kit, right? And I know you do because we talked about that in our other
Yeah,
video,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Make sure that there's gas in your gas tank. Make sure that your windshield wipers are good. I actually just had to help my wife. She just got new windshield wipers on her car because the storm, the snow was coming, the weather was coming, and her windshield wipers weren't so good. So we had to get that taken care of. Make sure you have some cash on hand because if we lose power and you go to an ATM, those ATMs aren't going to be working, right? Make sure you have an
Yeah.
ID card. Listen and pay attention to your weather forecasters. Know what is going on in our community.
Sure. What about clothing? What if you have to be the Yukon Cornelius looking for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer going out in the weather? What how? What about clothing in particular? If you do need to leave your dwelling,
Then you be that Yukon Cornelius. It's all about layers. Okay. It's all about making sure that you have uh, you make sure that you have wool. Make sure that you have some kind of like polyester, like the sport tech, like kind of what you have on.
yeah,
Make sure that you have multiple layers on. Make sure that you have a hat on. Make sure you got gloves on. Make sure you have a scarf. If you're going out, again, I don't recommend you going out. Just
yeah,
if you can
yeah.
stay put, stay put.
And I just wanted to add for people that if you're a wheelchair user, motorized or manual, and you think you need to venture out, try to think again because your average wheelchair isn't going to make it through the snow unless it's a real emergency. Stay inside. Stay inside.
And unfortunately, like you just said, Mike, people don't shovel sidewalks like they should, right?
Yeah.
People don't plow driveways like they should. So yeah, if you're a mobility device user, try to stay inside. I know you're going to be bored. Pick up the Farmer's Almanac and read it.
Well, yeah, I could do that. I had a farmer's almanac from the 1920s. That's just a side note for our lovely viewers. But you mentioned a kit. You mentioned all these to-go bags. Sounds like you're going to McDonald's or something. What do you mean to-go bag? These kits. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, that's a great question. This emergency preparedness kit is something that, hopefully there'll be items in there that will sustain your life. okay, if you're in an emergency. What I strongly recommend is if you're going out in your car, you have a kit in your car, okay? If you're going to your place of work in an office, have an emergency preparedness kit in your office. Have an emergency preparedness kit at home. Have an emergency kit for your service animal or your pet. These are all things that we need to think about. And a to-go bag, we had mentioned the to-go bag. The to-go bag is when that emergency goes really bad, and all of a sudden you see on the radio or you see on TV, we have an evacuation notice and we're having sheltering going on. That to-go bag is for you to grab and take with you to the shelter. It's got very important pieces in it that we'll touch upon in a little bit. But Erie County, just so you know, Erie County just recently distributed 5,000 emergency preparedness kits.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, our original plan was to kind of show one of those. So why don't we have some time, talk a little bit about, what might go into that a little bit. What
Well, I'll list the
Yeah.
items. Yeah.
list the items a little bit, and I'll go get one.
You're gonna go get one?
I'm gonna go. We're gonna go off the rails a little
off
bit.
script here?
Yeah.
You're gonna leave me alone?
For like
all right.
2 minutes. I'm gonna go get one.
All right. So yeah,
So we can kinda-
so we distributed Erie County and the United Way put together the kits and approximately 5,000 of those kits to distribute. We distributed them through the local library system as well as through our local municipalities. And unfortunately, I can tell you, all 5,000 of those went very, very quickly. I just conducted an emergency preparedness event at the Beyond Support School, and we passed out 100 of those kits. And it's important that Mike's going to grab that kit right now, but there's a lot of different items in that kit: duct tape and water and food bars and Mylar blankets. There's a container for water. There's so many different things in there. Again, it's hopefully it's something to build upon. It's not the perfect kit. There are resources out there through FEMA or Federal Emergency Management Agency. They have lists of things that you should keep in addition to the items that we have in our kit for you to build upon. I strongly recommend that you also, throughout the year, start buying tuna fish if you like tuna fish. Start buying canned beans. Start buying food that's shelf stable, so that in the event of an emergency, and you're stuck in your house, wherever in your workplace for 5 to 7 days, you'll have that food. Hey, there we go, Mike. All right. You want to tell people what we have in here?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
We'll do a little show and tell here for a minute,
All right, cool.
because I know we have some time here, so we're
Well,
gonna do a. So we have in this particular kit, and you can add to these. You can add to these, on your list, and you should add what's important to you. But we have work gloves, and you use work gloves in case there is something that you'll be touching that might be sharp or jagged.
right.
Let's see what we got. A first aid kit. You always want a first aid kit if there might be some scrapes and bruises. A glow stick,
Right.
because you can break these, crack these, and they'll give up to like 12 hours of light most of the time. And this, I know we're not too zoomed in here, but this is a Mylar blanket, so that it'll keep your heat in. It reflects sunlight.
Reflects your heat.
Yes.
Reflects your body
Reflects
heat.
your heat, yeah.
Right.
Re-
And
yeah. And we have one of the best inventions ever, duct tape. If you never need to tape anything, you got duct tape. So, all right. And also energy food, energy bars. This is a blueberry energy bar. We have drinking water in a pouch. You can get these in pouches so that they'll be available to you. We have a whistle. Why would you want to use a whistle, Frank?
Mike, I think the simple answer is to signal for help, right?
Yeah,
If you're in your car or if you're in a building and you're trying to let people know that you need help, here's your whistle, right? These are all the things that you need. Did you mention the radio?
I did not yet because you're supposed to be my Vanna here.
Sorry, I'm not doing a good
putting,
job.
Putting these up. So, people always think that we're going to have power, right? It's a modern thought, right? But what you should have is you should have something that can be either battery powered or cranked. And what they do is they sell flashlights and different things in combination with an AM/FM radio, like a mobile phone charger, a panic alarm, something where you get information. They also have weather radios as well. So this is something you should always have in one of your kits,
Right.
if not all of your kits.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of good things, and like you said, I think it's important what you said. This is just a kit for you to start building on, right? There may be other things, and I talked about your pets, maybe your service animals. I talked about maybe having some shelf stable food items,
Yes.
and the county gave them out in these fancy bags, but you could put yours into a backpack too.
Yeah, I would suggest putting them in something portable like a backpack. One thing we didn't show in there was, there's a reusable water bag so that you can hold a good amount of water in case you need it for boiling or bathing or something like that. But that's a good example. So Frank, when we talk about suggestions for people who might need to stay in their house, because I don't think we covered that.
Yeah.
What do you suggest? Because people always talk about going somewhere, but what if you're a person that doesn't have the support at the time and you need to stay in your house?
Well, if you're going to stay in your house, again, we touched upon the necessity for having food, right? Making sure that you have water, making sure that you're staying warm. If you're going to stay home, if you're going to stay in your home, check your vents. Make sure that snow hasn't covered the vents, because if snow covers the modern furnaces now, most of them vent outside, and a lot of times we'll get snow and it'll cover that vent. If that happens, A, your furnace will stop working, or B, you might get carbon monoxide in your house and you might not know it, and that is even more dangerous. So check your fire alarm, check your carbon monoxide alarm in your house. Make sure that your vents are covered or uncovered. Make sure that make sure that you have blankets. And if you have to dress up in winter clothes in your house, do so. It's this could be an emergency situation. You have to take care of yourself. You got to do the best thing you can for yourself.
All right. So Frank, when we talk about food,
Yeah.
why don't I just, if there's no power, why don't I just get a bunch of papers, take a match, light that sucker up, cook some food, boil some water, problem solved.
Until you start a fire in your house and the fire department has to come and rescue you, and the fire department can't get there, right? So we actually recommend that you don't use real candles in your house. We recommend that you use like a little electrical light. We don't really want people to have a live flame in their house, because we don't want houses burning down. It is a real concern, because if that first responder can't get to your house, you could be in real trouble.
Right. And people say, "Oh, that won't happen." Fires are easily spreadable and easily, easily started.
Yeah.
Just by with all good intentions,
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right. One of the things you mentioned to me recently was body heat.
Mhm.
How important is body heat?
Well, we maintain a body temperature of 98.6 degrees, right? It's very important to maintain that. If you are in a house that has lost its heat, again, you may need to get a couple extra blankets. You may need to get a sleeping bag. One of the things we recommend too is put a sleeping bag in your vehicle. In the wintertime, put a sleeping bag in your vehicle, along with that Mylar blanket. This might save your life. If you need to put a hat on, if you need to put gloves on, mittens, if you need to put an extra pair of pants on, whatever it is to stay warm, you do that. If you need to just kind of cuddle up with somebody else in your house to stay warm, you do that. Your body temperature is very important. You got to maintain that body temperature. You don't want it going below, because we don't want you going into hypothermia. And obviously we don't want it getting too high, because that's bad too. So we want you to maintain your body temperature as best as you can, but you got to do whatever it takes.
And one thing I want to mention too is, if you're a person that uses specialized equipment, talk to your community around you before a disaster happens, so that you can have a plan to be able to maintain that equipment. Because I know that when I was in that situation, I used a power wheelchair, and what I noticed with myself and my roommate is, we're like, "Yeah, we got power," because they said, "Oh, the power's going to come on in a couple hours." Well, it didn't, and we didn't have power to charge up the chair. Luckily, in our building, there was a room that had a generator, and we were able to get access to that. But you should really make a personal plan to try to figure out how you will deal with certain situations.
Well, and you bring up a generator. If you have a generator, if you know somebody that's got a generator, make sure that generator is outside. There have been too many occasions in which somebody brings that generator in the house, and that generator causes carbon monoxide poisoning. And again, the first responders got to go and rescue that person. So keep your generator outside.
So, Frank, you may have touched on this while I was gone getting the kit, but what do you do if you're in a severe situation and you do need to get help to get out of a building into a shelter or something? What are the steps for that? What do you do? Yeah, I'm sure calling into the air and using smoke signals isn't going to work.
No, that's not really going to work. But as a taking steps to prepare, like what we're talking about, right? What you want to do is, Erie County has what we call our functional needs registry form. That's this thing right here, and we ask people to fill this out if they have functional needs or if they have a disability. Fill this out. Let us know who you are. Give us a little bit of information. We don't keep this. This is strictly confidential. We give this information to the first responders in your local municipality. So if you live in the city of Buffalo, it would go to the city of Buffalo's first responder, like the fire department in your neighborhood. I live in the town of Tonawanda. It's going to go to my local fire department, so that my local fire department is aware that I'm a person who needs specific, assistance with X, Y, and Z. That's that creating relationships piece too, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
very, very, very important piece. So we have that. One of the other things too that, we were talking about before, we have these kits. New York State also does these trainings. And they, through their emergency preparedness, they have an emergency preparedness group. I forget what it's called, but New York State Emergency Preparedness. You go online. They actually give out these kits, but they also give them out in backpacks too. So there's a lot of different ways that we can make sure that we can remain safe. But in the event that you're in trouble, you can call 911, right? If you're in real trouble, call 911. Here in Erie County, we because of the December storm, we started 858 SNOW. That's 858 SNOW. It's not activated right now, but it will be activated when we know of a winter event or a storm event or emergency event. As soon as that happens, we're going to activate that number. So, if you need to reach out to somebody, there's you got 911. You also have 211. 211 has other resources, not necessarily emergency resources. For your emergency resources, you got 911 and you got that 858 SNOW.
Now we're talking locally for Erie County
Yes, we are.
in the Western New York
Yes.
area, but this is going out statewide. Can you touch a little bit on? I know you may not know a lot about, but can you touch a little bit on, some of the aspects of the statewide resources?
Excellent question. What I would strongly recommend for our listeners, for our viewers, is reach out to your local first responder organizations, your emergency responders.
Yeah, yeah.
Create those relationships. Let them know who you are. Let them know where you live.
Mhm.
Make sure that they know where you live and your specific needs. So, you're on that list.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And that's everywhere. Right. I have to imagine, pretty much every municipality, every county has an emergency preparedness department. Every
Yeah.
county has like a Department of Health. Okay. Every county has, every municipality has fire and emergency responders. Those are the people who you want to reach out to in your local municipalities.
Now, we talk about being prepared, having that awareness, and I like to say nowadays that the best first responder is you,
Yeah.
is yourself.
Yeah.
Because you control what is going on in your thoughts and your actions.
Yeah.
But can you talk about a little bit about non-perishable food? You probably did mention it a little bit, but a lot of people don't think of that because we have the modern convenience of the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Well, without power, there is no refrigerator. That your food will go bad after a while.
Yeah.
What do we mean by non-perishable foods?
Just that. Food that won't perish when it's, if food needs to be refrigerated, that's perishable, right? Your fruits, your vegetables, your meats, those are all perishables. Your eggs, your milk, your juice, that's all perishable. But your non-perishables, your shelf-stable foods, like I said, your cans of tuna fish, your can of beans. I'm just trying to think of all the other possibilities that you might have in your
Yeah.
in your shelves, right? Those are the things that now is not the time to be going out and buying a lot of that stuff. You want to do that throughout the year. Go buy one can a week, put it away, hide it away. A can of what's that Manwich, right? Sloppy Joe's, right?
Yeah.
A jar of spaghetti sauce. There you may not have the opportunity to make spaghetti, but you may be able to put that spaghetti sauce on something else. And I know that there are, you know, I was at a store recently, and they sell like pre-cooked noodles. You buy that pre-cooked noodle, you put that you make your, you know, emergency care pack,
Yeah.
you put that aside, you buy the spaghetti sauce, you got a meal. You buy a can of tuna, you got a meal.
Yeah.
You know, during those emergencies too, grocery stores, they were shut down. So it doesn't matter if you have a disability or not. Everyone's in the same boat here.
Now, 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 when I talk about these kind of things with people, they're like, "Oh, come on, you're an alarmist. You know, you watch those survival, you get survival information. Ha 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 ha." Can you talk a little bit about your experience as the ADA, person for the county and what it was like to actually deal with a storm where people actually needed help and the seriousness of that?
It's scary. You know, honestly, it's scary for the for the person on the one end of the phone and the other end of the phone. You know, the person who's making the phone call, they're scared, they're worried, they're nervous, right? The person on the other end, they have to help and say, okay, everything's going to be fine. Let's talk this through. You know, there's a lot of different situations. People have a lot of different situations in their lives, and there's a lot of people with a lot of different needs. It's important that the person who's answering that phone call, and what you're referring to is the Emergency Operations Center, Erie County. During emergencies, we operate an Emergency Operations Center, and it's a bank of about 20 or 30 phones, okay, with TV, with screens, with maps and everything else, and with resources that, you know, somebody calls and says, I need X, Y, and Z. The biggest need that the county received in the last blizzard, and the biggest need that the county has received in most of the storms, is people who need dialysis. That's life-saving stuff.
You were talking about, when we were preparing for this, you were talking about, it being so bad sometimes that there need to be special vehicles.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Because you were talking about dialysis
Yeah.
and emergency needs.
Yeah, we had people who were calling. You know, some people need dialysis daily. Some people need dialysis weekly. Uh, and dialysis isn't the only thing, but you know, I know of somebody who has a need for oxygen, right? And once you run out of oxygen,
That's it. Yes,
right?
oxygen is integral to living, right?
That's it. You
Right?
got it, my
You
friend.
need
You
oxygen
need
to
it.
live,
Yeah.
right? Right.
You know, so, you know, if you're at that emergency operations center and you pick up that phone call and there's that person who needs the dialysis and they haven't had dialysis in a week and they're running low, or if they need oxygen and they're running very low, what are we going to do to assist them? And you touched upon it. Erie County has Erie County Sheriff's Department, Erie County in general. We have Department of Public Works. We have vehicles. We have special vehicles that we can go get to people's houses. They refer to them as snowcats. You might see them if you go to a ski area. They're just tracked vehicles. We're going to put the person in the vehicle, and we're going to get them to that dialysis, or we're going to get them to a fire station that has oxygen. You know, we're going to get them to where they need to be, but they need to reach out first.
Yeah, yeah. And just to reiterate, you can't guarantee that your first responders are always going to be able to get to people.
That's right. That's
Right.
right. And again,
Right.
that's why we're talking today. That's the whole idea of emergency preparedness. You need to take those first steps. You need to make sure that you're not relying upon Erie County government or whatever municipality that you live in, whatever government entity that you live in. Make sure that you're not totally relying upon them because they may not be able to answer.
Now, I know you may have mentioned this as well before, but I want to reiterate, you know, we're dependent on our cell phones, and the cell phone has the receiving towers and sending towers. That's always going to be active, right?
What happens if we get a tornado? That's an emergency, right? And a tornado knocks out the cell towers. What happens then? So the answer to that is no. You're not going to have cell power.
But Frank, I need my tiki-taki and stuff like that.
You're going to be without, my friend.
You know, I mean, so
Yeah.
some of those modern conveniences might not be available to us.
That's correct. That is correct. You know, like your wheelchair. You have a battery in here, right?
Yes, I do.
Do you have an extra battery at home?
Well, actually, I know that somebody recently told me that that they heard of a solution for that. No, because the thing about the batteries is they need to be attached. So I'm gonna try to research and see what that solution might be,
Okay.
because that's not an easy fix.
Right. And
'Cause
you're
that
not the
needs a
only
technician.
you're not the only person that has a wheelchair with a battery, right?
Yes, right.
You know,
right.
I mean, there may be people who are going to
So-
watch this or who are watching this who need that information.
Yes.
It's important.
So I'll see if I can find that out, and I'll try to share it with the larger community
Yeah.
on social media or through email, however we can share that. Um, I was told that it exists, but I gotta find out if that's true.
And one of the other things to think about is you live in an apartment building that has an elevator, right?
Yes.
Is there a secondary form of power? What happens if the power goes out and that elevator isn't working? Is there a secondary form of power to help your elevator
Yeah.
work?
And that brings up a good thought before we move on to questions, is that you should be in contact with your property manager or your whoever helps you with your dwelling, because they would be able to know that. Like I know that, yes, in that emergency the elevator did work because it was powered by an emergency power source. But make sure that things are in place for that to happen. I think there's some sort of housing law that states something should be in place, but I'm not guaranteeing that. I'm not a housing law person, but I thought that there was something.
I mean, the ADA commands that. Okay, if there is a facility that, you know, you're a person with a disability and you require an elevator, yeah, that may be a requirement of the Americans with Disabilities Act to make sure that there is a secondary form of power.
Okay, okay. But we'll get to to some contact information at the end. But I think we wanted to open it up to some questions. Now, Kat is managing the Zoom for us. Kat, is there any questions like in the chat or the in the on the Facebook, or does anybody have questions on the Zoom directly here?
I'm not seeing any right now.
I was
Well,
gonna
see.
say, sorry,
Say that again.
I was gonna say, like me, like a lot of us don't have cars to get to the war room shelter. Would they send an emergency vehicle to come pick us up and drive us there if we need to evacuate?
Janet, I'm having trouble hearing.
She's saying if somebody needs to evacuate, that there's no other choice, will they send
An emergency vehicle.
If the emergency vehicles can get out.
Okay.
Okay, right? I mean, you know, like Mike and I have been talking about, when we had the blizzard in last December, emergency vehicles could not get out.
Yeah.
So the resident of your home, need to make sure that you're able to, survive for at least 3 to 7 days on your own.
Right.
So Sophia just asked a question. What situations would you need to evacuate in? Sophia, it may be a situation in which, I hate to say this, but As Mike alluded to before, somebody used a candle and started a fire in their house. Or if you have if your pipes freeze and you get water all over the house, that could be a situation in which you need to evacuate. If you have a carbon monoxide leak, that could be a situation in which you need to evacuate. Again, carbon monoxide it's invisible, you can't smell it, so you don't know what's going on. But that's why I say don't put your generator in your house, right? And make sure that you have a working carbon monoxide detector.
Oh, I had an additional question. I think Sophia's got another one though. I'll get mine after Sophia. Can you read that, Frank?
Sophia asks if you do not. Oh, ah,
If you don't have good mobility, it's kind of Janet's question.
Yeah.
In those situations where you would have to evacuate, like normally during a snowstorm, you would just stay inside. But in the situation like you just mentioned that you did have to evacuate, are there any resources or who would you call if you don't have good mobility? Like if you couldn't walk far or you didn't have a way yourself to kind of get somewhere?
so it's those few things that we touched upon. It's making sure that you have that relationship with your first responder, your local fire department, your local police station, making sure that uh, you have that functional needs assessment filled out and it's there with your first responders. But you always have 911, okay? And in addition to 911, we have the 858 snow number. So if 911 isn't working, you could try that 858 snow number.
So Frank, you're saying like to actually go to the fire department in your neighborhood that serves your neighborhood and sort of get to know them and tell them who you are, where you live, and that type of thing?
That's exactly right, Sophia. Yes, that's what creating relationships is all about. Yes.
Okay. Maggie had a comment or question in there. She was talking about make sure you have your laptops, your phones, and everything charged up. Can you talk about alternative power sources like battery backups and different things?
So, I know that I'm aware that there are solar powered chargers, right? I know that the flashlight radio that we've distributed here, it's a crank, and that also provides some form of charging for your phone. It's not going to be perfect if we lose power, but you'll get more charge than you had before, which may be nothing, right?
And it depends on what you want to spend as well, because there are more powerful,
Yeah.
battery backup chargers with solar power. But it depends on what your economics are, what your budget is,
Right.
those kind of things. So Andy,
I have a question for you, Mike, and for the guy right next to you.
Sure,
for
Andy.
Frank, sure.
Okay, so say that your power goes out. Do you really have to go to a hotel, or can you go to a house that you know of, like another group home?
Andy, it's all about that circle of care. I think that it's probably best for you to go to someplace that you are familiar with, to be with people who you are familiar with. It's not going to be, Andy. A hotel is not going to be a sheltering situation. A sheltering situation is going to be like the Buffalo Convention Center, just a really big building in which we're going to have cots, okay, and we'll be giving out warm soup, okay.
That's all. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Sure.
Frank, I know we just got a couple more minutes, but we talked about service animals and pets.
Yeah.
Um, what is recommended for them? I know they do, there's
So that's a really good question. If we talk about a sheltering situation, make sure that you have a picture of your pet. Make sure that if it is a pet, okay, it may not be allowed in a sheltering situation. Okay, service animals will certainly be allowed into a sheltering situation. Okay, because a sheltering situation falls under the Americans with Disabilities Act, Title II of the ADA. Pets do not. Okay, if somebody has a cockatoo, those fancy birds, or a python, okay, that's not something that you want to have in a sheltering situation. It might scare the heck out of everybody, right? Make sure that you have ample food, or make sure that maybe there's somebody else who could take care of those pets. But service animals will certainly be allowed in, yes.
Okay, okay. I will say that we're having a little bit of trouble with our mouse over here. So if there's any other, digital questions, please let us know. We only have a couple minutes left. Did you want to give any closing information about contacts for here locally in Erie County?
Again, I think the most important thing is 211, right? For resources, for local resources. My office number is 716-858-6215. If anybody needs anything from our office, okay?
Okay.
If the 858 SNOW, in the event that we know that an emergency is about to happen, that gets activated, okay? 911. Those are just some of the numbers to contact, but make sure that you start now creating your circle of care or your circle of support, creating those relationships in your community.
Now, one last question, and then we'll say goodbye to our friends online and our viewers. For the people that might not be local to Erie County, where can they go to get information about how to build these kits?
You could call our office and we can give you a list.
Okay.
That number, that 716-858-6215. You could also go to FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. FEMA has a lot of resources for older adults, for service animals, for people with disabilities, for children, for families. They have lists of emergency kits, supplies for emergency kits. So, and how to survive. FEMA has great resources. Go to New York State Emergency Preparedness. Those are just a few
Also,
of the
the
resources.
Red Cross, right?
The Red Cross, yes, yes. Thank you for
Yes.
mentioning that. The Red Cross, right? Because the Red Cross is actually who sets up the shelters in the event that we have a shelter. It's not up to Erie County or your municipality. It's up to the American Red Cross to set up that shelter.
Okay. Well, on behalf of A.R.I.S.E of Western New York, and with the help of Voice Buffalo, who has been very gracious to to help us host this today, we want to thank you for joining, and I'm gonna speak with them about making sure that the contact information for A.R.I.S.E Western New York, that's a local task force that is working on some things related to people with disabilities. But maybe we can get that information up so that you know how to contact the task force as well. But we want to thank you for tuning in. And if you're watching this, after the fact, share this with anybody you think with a disability or not that might need this information. That's why we do these. So thank you everybody for coming on today.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the
Thank
opportunity.
you, Frank. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
great.
Thanks for this opportunity. It's important to get this message out.
Yes.